Imagine stepping out of your front door in the United States. You immediately hit the ground, dodging bullets. You've got your bulletproof Bible, but a stray gets your shoulder anyway.
Ouch.
You're not sure if your health insurance will cover a bullet wound, so you decide to walk it off. Or rather, you drive it off in your monster truck because walking in buses are for the poors. Then you show up for work and put in a short 12-hour day, occasionally reminiscing about your last vacation 5 years ago to Señor Frogs in Cancun. And at the end of the day, you roll up to the closest McDonald's for a light double cheeseburger and large fry with a jug of Coke that could easily double as a helmet. After all, fruits and vegetables are for pussies. For many of my fellow Europeans, this is what people think life is like in the United States. But the World Cup, co-hosted by the United States alongside Mexico and Canada, is showing the world that, just like anywhere else, the people are not necessarily their government. But is this real life? Or just sports washing a rogue nation's abnormally orange balls? My name is Joe Bauer, an American who immigrated to Germany 10 years ago, became a citizen, and regularly travels around both the continent and the world to try to close the gap between the story we're told about a place and the reality on the ground. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how this World Cup is ruining the perception many around the world had of me and my fellow Americans, and how my own recent travels to some of the Western national parks have shown me the truth about the American people. The United States is a pretty horrid place to be, no matter whether you're from there or a tourist. That's at least the gist I get from the internet, especially from some of the comments I get on my own channel. But the internet is oftentimes just a loud microcosm of bitter, angry people who couldn't experience joy if it smooched them right on the face. Now, if you've watched any number of videos on this channel, then you know I am not the jingoistic, rah-rah, sis-boom-ba, chest-thumping type. I critique the United States heavily and often, from the car-dominated society that makes us sick to the American exceptionalism worldview that, in my humble opinion, holds us back from learning from other countries and cultures. But I am always quick to defend the large majority of the American people, who continue to be some of the kindest, welcoming people I meet on my travels around the world. Besides, they're the ones suffering under the various societal ills for which we're often criticized or laughed at by the rest of the world. Hans from Ham isn't the one suffering from a broken healthcare system, federally weaponized xenophobia, or the crime we've committed against pizza. Now, with the World Cup well into its second week, I think it's safe to say that the world, especially Europeans, are finally starting to see the United States that I mostly grew up with. I mean, just look at the reception some of these World Cup teams are getting. Cities aren't just cheering on the United States, they're adopting the national teams playing in their respective cities.
I want to say thank you to Team Algeria for choosing our hometown, Lawrence, Kansas, to come here. And so welcome. Welcome to United States. Welcome to Kansas.
And the response from visiting fans has been overwhelmingly positive, especially among Scotland's legendary Tartan army that drank Boston dry.
And the Scots, they've been drinking so much that at one point some of the bars were running out of beer.
But on an individual level, I don't think anyone beats this guy from Japan.
I cannot speak English, but I'm excited!
Yeah, baby! Let's go!
Me too, Tomodachi. Me too. Now, none of this is particularly surprising for me. I grew up in the United States, went to college there, lived in Chicago and Cleveland before moving overseas, first to Costa Rica and then to Germany, where I've been the last 10 years. But even though I moved overseas and generally prefer my life here, I still go back at least once or twice a year to see family. And since I became fully independent after getting German citizenship 2 years ago, I'm able to travel more around the country too. Back in November, I traveled to the western Ozarks of Arkansas, I cycled, I ran around, I wrote a story about it, and I had a lovely time with lovely people. And last month, I revisited my old neighborhood in Cleveland, and I traveled around to national parks in Nevada and Utah with some city stops in Salt Lake City, Boise, and Portland. Again, I met some wonderful, interesting people who've similarly traveled around the world, care about things I care about, and want to live a fulfilling life like most of us do. The fact that people are just catching on to this through the World Cup shouldn't be surprising, but that's partly what these global events are good for, showing off the humanity behind a country and its people.
Thank you for coming to Boston.
Thank you.
You guys, I want you guys to stay here because you make Boston fun again.
These are the greatest people I've ever seen in my life. I want them to stay here forever if they could.
Everyone in Boston wants all of the Scottish fans to stay.
I haven't seen Boston party like this in a very long time, so having it be in Boston especially, a city with a lot of immigrants, a lot of passion for the sport, it's great. It's great to see.
Although I wish people would give Americans, the people, not the government, the benefit of the doubt, I don't necessarily blame Europeans or the rest of the world for being skeptical of the US, full stop. We suffer from overwhelmingly negative perceptions of our own country, particularly with how right-wing media tends to portray more liberal parts of the United States. Fox News in particular runs off this idea that there's a real America and a liberal dystopia trying to destroy the country from within. So even our own citizenry is led to believe by a multi-billion-dollar network that, as an example, the city home to the Statue of freaking Liberty isn't part of the so-called real America. So I find it tragically ironic that some people across the internet, who probably fancied themselves as rather enlightened, would come to the same conclusion about large swaths of the United States as a Fox News propagandist, that the country is a dangerous hellhole that you should largely avoid.
Full-blown chaos, mayhem in Manhattan. Unruly troublemakers.
Gee, with all those unruly troublemakers, thank God we now have an army patrolling our streets. I think John Oliver said it best when he described FIFA as a criminal organization, comparing them to a drug cartel.
FIFA is a terrible organization that happens to produce the best imaginable product. But those two
it's like
things
a drug organization making the best drugs.
The greatest cocaine.
There's a strong case being made that governments go after global events, like the World Cup, to engage in sports washing, using popular athletics to change global perception. Russia, Qatar, and Saudi 2034 come to mind. In fact, my conspiracy theory is that the United States only agreed to co-host with Canada and Mexico because those countries generally have a good international reputation and they wanted to, use them like some kind of a political shield. I mean, hell, Americans do this all the time, especially all those cowardly backpackers who stitch a Canadian flag onto their backpack. I'm sorry, but you don't get to travel with an American passport with all the privilege that entails, roughly in the 95th percentile of powerful passports in the world, with 179 visa-free destinations you can enter, and then go and play Canadian because you were afraid someone might ask you an uncomfortable question at your Berlin hostel. I don't know, methinks the Germans you'll meet can handle the mental exercise of, I am from this place, but I don't like the leader who's obsessed with giving speeches, having military parades, and trying to start a war with the world. But here's why I ultimately don't think this is sports washing. First of all, we all said the same thing about Qatar and Russia. They're sports washing their bad behavior, so we should boycott the World Cup. But those World Cups have come and gone. So here's my question. Does the world look any more lightly upon the Qatari government and their heinous anti-LGBTQ laws because they hosted the World Cup 4 years ago? Or how about we ask Putin if the world took it easier on them when they invaded Ukraine because they had hosted the World Cup just 4 years earlier at the time? Second of all, the whole point of sports washing is that an event like the World Cup changes global opinion of the government. I absolutely cannot imagine that any international football or soccer fan will go home thinking, you know what? That Donald isn't so bad after all. Let him have Greenland and a few more bombs in case he gets bored again. Besides, the guy has seemingly shown little to no interest in the World Cup after FIFA gave him his trophy bribe carved by Hades himself. He was too focused on his Idiocracy cosplay festival on the White House lawn. Look, sports fans, multiple things can be true at the same time. The US government can be a cancer to the world, FIFA can be a glorified criminal organization that sells a phenomenal product, and the American people can be kind, welcoming hosts who've long been misrepresented on the international stage by their government.
They've been great hosts, and I hope we've been great guests.
Boston has been fabulous, absolutely brilliant. Beautiful city, beautiful people, so friendly and welcoming.
I don't think we could have asked for a better place to come to enjoy the World Cup experience.
Trying everything that we see on TV, that we see on Instagram, that's exactly what we're doing.
And again, I don't necessarily blame individuals for being skeptical of the United States, though I would like to think the people would at least get the benefit of the doubt. Especially if you come from a country with its own horrific chapters of history, which is basically, by my calculations, every country in the goddamn world. Still, I don't blame individuals because the world is absolutely overexposed to the United States, its news, and its pop culture. The US is kind of like Green Day's American Idiot album. I love Green Day, don't get me wrong, and it's a great album, but way too many of those songs have been played to absolute death. I swear a little part of me dies each time I hear the opening notes of Wake Me Up When September Ends. And as a September baby, I find the song vaguely offensive. Do better! But fans from around the world are taking to American hospitality and have gotten to know the people beyond the mainstream media headlines that make this country frankly look like a trashy reality show. As Ugandan comedian Joe Opio put it on Trevor Noah's podcast,
people are discovering different sides of America because they're getting to meet real Americans as opposed to Americans being represented by their government.
And who knows, maybe we'll finally get a decent chant out of this.
13 stripes, 50 stars, we don't care who the f*** you are!
No, the US probably didn't deserve to host the World Cup alongside Mexico and Canada, and there's a lot of valid criticism there, including exorbitant ticket prices and visa issues on top of the infantile behavior of the host government. But they have it! It's here, and people are clearly having a good time. And with everything going on in the world, we should relish that there's this moment of international camaraderie. There's a meme going around that I think sums it up quite well. The World Cup is just the US having a giant sleepover with the cousins we never get to see because our parents hate each other. And I think after this World Cup, we won't just remember how Americans showed the rest of the world a good time alongside their co-hosts Canada and Mexico. I think we'll also see Americans learn or reinforce the idea that it's this kind of community and lively streets that brings true happiness in the world. Because as you'll see in this video, the stereotypical way of doing things in the US isn't making us happy. In fact, if anything, following the playbook makes us pretty miserable.